the speech you saw online happened because on my way to the stage, a guy named Tim Ferriss, who wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week, stopped me and said, "Tell me about the testicles." It was an insane question, and he was referring to the sheep castrating segment on Dirty Jobs. And I didn't have time, obviously. I was on my way to the stage. And it was awkward because Tim's book is an example of what I often talk about as wrong with our attitude on work. You know, the idea that you can actually have a 4-hour work week. It's a way of making work into the enemy. It's a way of minimizing it, you know. So I was freaked out that Tim was in the audience. He had just asked me to talk about testicles, and I'm on my way to a stage to address a room full of people who probably aren't all that interested in hearing about the forgotten benefits of the Puritan work ethic. So what I did on stage was answer Tim's question. I talked about the day that I bit the testicles off of the little baby sheep, and I talked about everything I had assumed to be correct about that process, and later finding out that it was all wrong. You know, PETA told me what to expect with these rubber bands and a process that seemed more humane, but in fact was not. So that was the point of my speech. You know, I talked about anagnorisis. You know, it's a term that Aristotle wrote about. It means discovery, literally. The idea that, you know, anagnorises are the things that define our lives. And I talked about peripeteia, which was a very specific sort of discovery that you read about in famous Aristotelian tragedies, where the hero realizes that everything he thought he knew about a thing was wrong. Oedipus realizes, you know, that hot chick he's been sleeping with and having babies by is actually his mom. It's a moment of peripeteia. Bruce Willis realizes he's been dead the whole movie. Peripeteia. I realize in my show every single day that some sort of expectation or assumption that I had made about a job or a person or work in general is upside down. So, you know, without going through the whole TED conference, my message hasn't changed all that much, and it really only became interesting to me personally when I was able to confess to myself that a lot of what I thought I knew and had right over the years was in fact a mistake. And so look, if I'm wrong about the way to remove the testicles off of a sheep, and if I'm wrong about all these other things, I began to wonder maybe if other people were with me in their misconception about what a good job was. Dirty Jobs is about work, you know, and the idea that a good job is this thing that automatically comes at the end of a 4-year degree. The idea that a college degree is going to be a golden ticket that'll put you onto some path that will ultimately redound to your enlightenment, happiness, satisfaction. That's an interesting notion, and one that is relatively new to the workforce in the last few decades. Like the question before about labor unions, you know, I think it's possible to go too far in a direction, and we've gone so far in the educational direction that we've convinced ourselves that there's education, i.e. a 4-year degree, and everything else, which falls under the alternative education umbrella, right? It's a subtle but ultimately dismissive label. So when you look at on-the-job training, you look at apprenticeships, fellowships, scholarships, all of these other things that are viable ways to have a career, we've dismissed them, you know, and we've done it we do it in the way we portray work on TV. Show me a plumber, he's 300 pounds with a giant butt crack, right? It's guaranteed. Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week, and others like it, these are good guys. Their message isn't bad. It just becomes part and parcel of this larger assault on work. And so my message to Ted and my message to you is that there are a lot of ways right now to make a living. And the people on Dirty Jobs, not individually perhaps, but as a group, they've come, for me anyway, to represent almost a control group and an example, apologetics really, of people who are content, who are paying their bills, who are contributing to society, and who are having a pretty good time, in many cases having a better time than a lot of my friends, investment bankers, actuarial accountants, writers, etc. So, the big heads up is that you're never as smart as you think you are. And there's always somebody out there who knows something that you don't. And if you're willing to look at your own experience through the lens of anagnorisis, maybe a touch of peripetia, I'm not saying it'll make you smarter, but hopefully it'll make you a little more interesting. Bonus, if time. Is there time?
Yes.
How long is that tape, dude?
We got like 60 more minutes. Just keep it going.
60 more minutes. Nuclear fried steak. Would you ever consider running for Congress? Seriously, you'd kill. You're right, nuclear fried steak, I would. I'd get in there and I'd kill somebody. That's what I would do. I would kill. No. I'm happy to say that if the FBI were to investigate me thoroughly, I'd be qualified to run. No outstanding warrants, no jail time. True, I've had a lot of addresses. Not every reference is sterling, but I could run. I don't think I'd win, and if I did, I wouldn't know what to do. I'm not a political animal at all, really. But the show, Dirty Jobs, as simple as it is, has some very big themes that sort of resonate underneath of it. And so I find myself more and more being asked questions like, you know, labor-oriented questions, and, you know, people get political. We're living in a political time, but really for me, I try and default to the simplest position I can, which is work. Everybody has to work, at least, you know, the interesting people do. And so, you know, this website that has spun out of Dirty Jobs called MicroWorks, it was built by fans of the show, and it was built in a way that had nothing to do with political affiliation. I basically just went out and said, you know, I thought it would be cool if we could have a trade resource center that people could come to and look at state resources, apprenticeships, fellowships, scholarships, on-the-job trainings, things like that. And I'm not all that tech savvy, but I thought if some of the viewers would suggest some ideas, I might be able to hire somebody to get them into some sort of format. Anyhow, that was Labor Day over a year ago. We have tens of thousands of listings right now on the site. It's become a big resource center. And we have forums now, and people are there talking about work. And look, it's not going to change the world, I don't think, but it's a chance to have a conversation about what a good job means today. And you know what? I don't think I could do that in Congress. I wouldn't know how to do it. I don't have the faintest idea, but I can get people together and I can start conversations and push them in a direction that I think is helpful. I think it'd be really cool, for instance, if those 3 or 4 million shovel-ready jobs that are ultimately supposed to be coming down the pike are jobs that people really aspire to, you know, actually want and feel good about having. There's got to be a place, whether it's online or in the real world, where the traditional notions of work are celebrated. And look, Dirty Jobs first and foremost is an entertainment program, but if we can tap into some of that, you know, and if we can get the conversation going in a fun direction, you know, mission accomplished. That's good for me. That's the ticket I'm running on. Blood, sweat, grime, a little bit of poop. Maybe I could run with the poop.
No, just if you wanted to...
The shameless plug.
The shameless plug.
All right, this is my outro to Reddit readers. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for for listening to my stream of consciousness answer. Dirty Jobs lives and dies by suggestions of people. I haven't had an original idea in 3 years. If you have an idea for Dirty Jobs, I'd be grateful. You can let me know at microworks.com, or you can go to the Dirty Jobs site, discovery.com/Dirty Jobs, wherever you'd like. I'm easy to find. Much obliged.